I got a strong Southern gringo accent. I sound like cornbread and a bale of hay. Is it impossible for me to learn how to speak Spanish and not sound like a John Deere tractor? Okay, so all jokes aside, is it possible for a Southerner from the United States of America with a strong Southern accent learn how to speak Spanish and not sound like this? Hola, me llamo Zacarias y yo estoy aquí para hablar con usted. Well, the answer is yes. And let me start this off by telling you a really interesting story. This is the beginnings of my journey that led me to eventually become an accent coach where I worked with Hollywood actors and all kinds of interesting clients from around the world. So I am originally from deep East Texas, where the southern drawl is very strong. So let me tell you something though. When I was around 12 or 13 years old, I want to say I was traveling a lot, especially up north. And when I would travel up north, I would get made fun of for my accent. And I didn't know I had an accent because whenever you grow up, you don't really know that you have an accent until someone points it out to you. And if they make fun of you for it and you're young and you don't really have a lot of like confidence in who you are and stuff like that, it's embarrassing and you don't like it. And I remember people being like, wow, are you from Texas? And I'm like, yeah, how did you know? Like people I just met. And they're laughing at me. They're going, oh, we can tell from your accent. And they're like, what do you ride a horse to school? Remember, these are just dumb kids, right? And I'm like, no, we have cars. And anyways, so when I was a teenager, I worked really hard on developing a neutral accent. And then as my teenage years went on, I ended up moving around to different areas and what imitating started kind of adopting the accents that were around me. And then it got to a point to where I could change my accents a lot and I kind of enjoyed it. And then I started learning Spanish. I started doing the same thing in Spanish, learning different accents. And then I'm not going to tell the whole story, but I ended up having this interesting opportunity where I became an accent coach and I worked for some years as a professional accent coach, and it was a lot of fun. It was really interesting. And, anyways, it's just an interesting part of the history. But I'm telling you this story to let you know that yes, you can do it. And I'm going to give you a tip right here that is going to be the biggest tip for you to not sound, actually, two tips. Let me take that back. Two tips for you to not sound like a Southern, cowboy when you're trying to speak Spanish. The first tip is this: you want to focus highly on the five vowel sounds in English. And the beautiful thing is it's not like English where it's complicated, where the letter A could go ah, ah, a, like whatever. It's like, no, the all the five vowels in Spanish, they all make only one clean, crisp sound that are easy for all English speakers to do. And they sound like this. The A in Spanish sounds like ah. The E is E. The I is E. I know that sounds a little bit backwards, but you just gotta learn it. A-E-I-O. Next one is O. Then is O. Crisp. O, not O. Going to the ocean. Oh no, it doesn't do this. It's just O, 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 Oceano, like that, right? And then U, which is U, U, U. So it's A, E, I, O, U. That is it. If you focus on them, you are going to advance 10 years faster than some people. There's literally people that we see like that have been living 10 years in all different Spanish speaking countries. It's so crazy. And you're like, oh, how long have you lived here in Mexico? How long have you lived here in Argentina? How long have you lived here in, wherever? And they're like, oh, I've lived here for, 12 years. And then you hear them speak Spanish to someone and they're not getting the vowels right. And it's like, you only have five vowel sounds that you need to perfect. So here's the exercise for the vowels. And then I'll get into tip number two. The exercise is this: just practice reading in Spanish. And so as you're reading, you're focusing on getting the five vowel sounds right. So you're reading, you're like, El niño se fue a la tienda para comprar leche y huevos. And you just practice the five vowel sounds. Here is tip number two to not sound like where you're from. Okay. And this applies to even if you have like, if you're coming from France and you're learning Spanish, or you're coming from, like, this applies to any strong regional accent. Okay. Focus on the melody of the way that the person is speaking. So, man, maybe I probably should have put this in a different video, but anyways, I'll touch on it here. So here's because this is kind of a deeper topic, but everyone's melody has a song to it. So it's like, for example, in the South, well, depending on where you're from, it could sound like, well, we just do it like that here. Well, you don't want to sound like that in Spanish with the song, the melody to be like, bueno, nosotros hacemos así aquí. Like you don't want to be like that. Like nosotros lo hacemos así aquí, right? Now it also depends on like, are you learning Mexican? Are you learning Spanish? Are you listening and trying to learn from Mexican speakers, Argentinian speakers, Colombian speakers? You'll adapt their melody. And here, you know what? I don't want to get too deep into it, but just listen to their melody. If you want me to make a video about melody, just remind me and I'll be happy to do it because there are some exercises where that I used to use for teaching people how to adapt to new accents. And there's a really interesting method that I invented to help people pick up the melody. There's a few different exercises and tips that we can get into. So, anyways, I hope that helps. I'll see you in the next one.